So let's do a formal introduction then. Michael Leitner, interior designer and associate from Seta Architects. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Michael is a College of Management graduate, has worked in commercial design and workplace environments for a number of years, shall we say. She has held the role of associate and team leader for the past 12 years at Seta Architects, one of the top Israeli design firms that specialize in office design. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Leitner. Next, we have Sophia Hagen, co-founder of Hagen Hinderdale. Sophia is an interior architect, designer, and co-founder of the company. Sophia focuses on the creative concepts of Hagen Hinderdale's projects, working at the intersect of sustainable design and innovative technologies to create 3D printed sculptural products and immersive installations. Sophia trained in architectural design under the aegis of Zaha Hadid and that was followed by a traineeship as an interior designer in Paris. Ladies and gentlemen, Sophia. Paul is here as well. Paul Cuschieri, founding partner and designer of designer architect at Rebirth Studio. Paul set the studio up in 2019. He runs it with co-founding partner and fellow interior designer Malcolm Abela Skiberas. I hope I've said that correctly, Malcolm. The company has bases in London and Malta, and over the years, Paul's demonstrated his expertise in architecture and interior design on various high-end projects, renovating and refurbishing prime properties with exceptional results. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul.
Thank you.
And last but by no means least, we have Marco Arber, who's head of fitted cabinetry and kitchens at Linley. Now, I'm sure many of you will know, but Linley was founded by David Linley, son of Princess Margaret, the sister of the late Queen Elizabeth II. And the company was founded in 1985. And Linley has a world-renowned reputation for fusing striking design with exemplary craftsmanship. Marco has worked at Linley for over 3 years, starting as an interior designer, and currently heads the fitted cabinetry and kitchens department and is involved in projects really around the world. So welcome, Marco.
Thank you.
So we're going to have a little discussion, or a big discussion, I'm not sure yet, around architecture and interior design. We will be throwing the floor open later on to questions. So as we go along, think if you have any questions for any of our panelists, and please feel free to ask those later. But let's start with Michael. Let's talk about architecture first of all. Architects, here's a statement for you, all right? Architects need to be environmentally conscious first and foremost. How much do you agree with that?
Well, it's an issue, right? Sustainability and environment consciousness is something that we as interior designers I think it's no issue, because most of our projects today are with sustainable materials. We use environmentally friendly MEPs, electric faucets, electric toilets, and mostly we design an office environment that supports sustainability. So if we place recycle bins and dishwashers, we give all the amenities that are sustainable and support that.
Paul, I presume you agree with those sentiments.
Yes, I mean,
it is important.
Thank you for the question, Natalie. I believe that sustainability nowadays is like an unspoken rule. You have to design and include it regardless of whether it's specified directly in the brief. Obviously, we work very close with our engineers and the collaborative architects to obviously integrate our designs and to integrate certain services, especially in large projects, to make sure that we're not only being less bad, but obviously we're trying to contribute rather to the environment, especially with certain grey water systems or PV systems, which are also inherent within the design, to then make sure that at least we're reducing our carbon effect.
Sophia, I know this issue of sustainability is pretty central to what you do, isn't it?
It's pretty much what we do, yeah. So, but we come at it from three angles, I would say. So for one, it's the material research we do. So we work a lot with sustainable like waste materials, like medical plastic tray waste, concrete waste, composite sawdust from carpentry waste, but then also organic materials like sugar, like what I'm wearing here, or seaweed, coffee, etc., food waste. So there's the material angle to it, and then how do we make the products, which is all 3D printed, as you mentioned earlier, which is actually one of the most sustainable or most efficient technologies to work with, because you only use the material you need, and you don't produce any additional waste because you don't need any molds, and prototyping is also kind of diminished because all the software we use to print is AI-based. So this process is simulated beforehand, and then you pretty much one-to-one can generate the product. And also the structure is part of the design, but that's probably down to my Zaha background. Everything's quite organic, and the more curves, the better for stability. So all of this creates sustainable products in terms of the waste that's upcycled, but also how they're made and how they're repurposed afterwards. Because we often have art installations that are then turned into furniture.
Marco, what about you at Linley? Bespoke fitted cabinetry, how much does sustainability come into that?
Sustainability, I mean, it depends on what we try and do is educate as much as we can decline. You know, you get clients that are interested and they are particularly looking for sustainable products, and sometimes you have clients that they just want what they want, don't they? So in terms of sustainability and what we do is we tend to use as little solid timber as possible. We use veneers because, first of all, solid timbers doesn't last as long as an MDF-based kitchen. So what we do is we use MDF, which obviously comes from wood shavings that would have otherwise be discarded, and they actually get reused and made into MDF, which lasts a long time. And then we use natural materials such as veneers that are obviously positively and carefully sourced, you know, and we make our cabinets on the base on the MDF, and then we use veneer to obviously embellish it, and it will last longer. You won't use solid timber, and at the end of the day, some timbers you couldn't really use anyway. And what we like to do is we do use maybe exotic veneers, and I'm sure if you've been to one of our shops or if you've seen one of our kitchens, despite the fact that we use some exotic veneers, they're old veneers and they're not solid timber, and therefore they last longer. And same with marble as well. What we do is we tend to specify real stone as opposed to porcelain tiles. And you know, to make a porcelain tiles or slab that looks like marble, it takes so much more energy. Whereas the marble, you just source it, and obviously, yes, it does take a lot of water and energy and to manufacture it. But at the end of the day, what you're sourcing is a natural material, whereas in the case of porcelain, you're actually making up a man-made stone.
Well, thank you, Marco. Let's take that point then into the architectural field. Once upon a time, I'm guessing, people wouldn't have considered renovation over demolition. That didn't come into consideration. How much has that changed, do you think? Paul, how much are you thinking more now about, oh, let's keep, the word keep, let's keep that, let's keep this?
Fortunately, most of our clients are becoming much more nostalgic towards the old properties. And fortunately, there's much more awareness now, and we're trying to keep as much as possible and try to give birth back to these abandoned properties. I also think that it's very important to be very careful of the properties we pull down especially properties in the 60s and 70s that we might not consider as important as earlier properties. But what happens is that if we lose these kind of properties, we might even lose part of history. And the next generation will not even have a memory of such architecture. So I think that, one, there's no clear cookie-cut solution to this. So we can't say, yes, we're going to keep everything. So it very much depends on the project per se. It needs to be on the property and the condition and also the brief. But if we can retain the original fabric, then we do. It's obviously, we're reducing the carbon footprint considerably. We don't build like they do. Certain stone moldings, for example, are almost impossible to do nowadays, both of cost and even tradesmen. We're getting a lack of those. So we do strongly believe that, unfortunately, most of our projects are like this, that we do try to reinvent the space and make sure that we're adding to the story of this place and make sure it lasts another generation.
Thank you, Paul. Michael, I'm presuming some of this will depend on the client as well. You can try and persuade the client, you can try and discuss with the client, but at the end of the day, it's their decision, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. We see a lot of clients in the recent time that want to renovate or more reuse existing equipment. I find that renovate to new needs is more difficult than reuse existing equipment to a new design. So in many of our projects, we reuse furniture that is in good state, AV equipment, AC units, electricity boards, mainly the infrastructure that costs a lot of money to produce new one. So if we can reuse things that are existing, it's more budget friendly and of course more sustainable.
And then, of course, you have the challenge of how design-led should we be? Sophia, do you think we should be challenging the local vernacular, or should you believe that we should be embracing historic elements that surround whatever project we're working on?
I think it should be a bit of both, because I absolutely, like, despite all of our robotic fabrication, innovative technologies, we definitely embrace existing structures. We embrace what's there. We enhance them with certain elements, but then very often, because what we do in terms of probably reusing, it's different than you. We might use the waste and then create some new products out of it, like literally things that you can't use anymore. You grind it down and then print with it, create something new. But I think it should be a bit of a blend of both, because people often forget that circular economy is not just about, sustainable materials, etc. It's about the longevity of items, and the longer they last, the more efficient it becomes. So we should always bear that in mind, that actually the main goal should be for them to last as long as possible and not be chucked away.
Marco, our theme, you may have noticed already, and we'll talk more about this later, but due to our relationship with Laufen, our theme for the day and evening is water. Now, there's a lot of water that happens within a kitchen environment. Yes. So how much these days are you thinking about how can we economize on the amount of water that is going to be going through this beautiful new room that you've designed?
Well, I would be lying if I said that it doesn't take too much water to make a kitchen or a marble, for example, to cut the marble. But I do think that in terms of how much water goes into it, obviously you do use a lot of water, and you do need water in a kitchen, but you need water mainly because that's the whole purpose of the kitchen, is works around water. In terms of water saving, really, I mean, we do try and use sustainable production lines and so on. In terms of what we can actually do to save the amount of water, we do use a lot of water, but I'd say the main the person that actually is in charge of the water once we've installed or once we've been given the task is mainly the builder, I'd say. So
and inevitably the client.
yeah, and inevitably the client as well once we've installed.
Yeah.
But I'd say we get involved, and normally the client, in particularly when it comes to taps, like kitchen taps and so on, they do get involved and they want the latest version of, it could be a cooker tap or hot water, sparkling water, and so on. I guess a way you could see it in a positive way is that recent and modern taps, I would say, basically, if you get a cooker tap or an under tap with filters, sparkling, still water, hot boiling water, you don't buy water itself. You don't go to a supermarket and buy plastic bottles of water, and therefore you lose less plastic. And at the end of the day, you don't need to recycle the plastic because you're not actually using that much.
So that comes into it.
Yeah.
Mikhail, you've already spoken about use of grey water within your designs and trying to economise. And presumably, I'm assuming here, although it does, as Lord Best alluded to earlier, it does get pretty hot here in the UK sometimes these days. But, your climate, the climate within Malta, you are trying to economise as much as you can on water all the time.
Yeah, sure. Israel is known for our shortage of water, so we are very water conscious. It wasn't like that like 10 years ago, but now we have smart faucets that minimize the amount of water that come out. Of course, they are electric, so everything is very measured. Again, with all water consumption, like toilets, like dishwashers. Everything is smart and electric. And this, of course, comes to hand in all of our projects, mainly in office environments where there's so many users.
People leaving the tap on as well. Yeah. Whose office do people leave the tap on? Paul, what about you? Thanks, Mikhail.
Water is becoming very expensive, even to create, especially in Malta, for example, where we have no natural springs. We get water all from the sea. And the first thing that we do is usually try to harvest rainwater. Unfortunately, we don't have much of that, so it ends up all being used by irrigation. But what we do nowadays, especially in large projects, is we treat grey water. Black water, unfortunately, is a bit too risky to treat and reuse. But grey water is very good to reuse, for example, for, once again, irrigation, for washing, for even laundry and so on. So having these systems in place will make sure that you are reutilizing water to a certain degree before it's completely wasted. And obviously, yes, as I mentioned, so faucets are now becoming much more intelligently designed, allowing you to stop at a certain marker before going into a phase where you need to add more pressure and water. So we're moving in that direction, but I do recommend that certain systems, especially in large projects, are implemented.
Sophia, we've talked before about your ethos for design and really, getting very deeply involved in trying to conserve as much as we can of things that would normally be thrown away. Where do you stand on the water issue?
So that might be a slightly different angle in terms of we work a lot with the technologies are new, so are the companies and fabricators we work with. And all of them, maybe because they're startups and the venture capitalists behind them have that thinking ahead, do projects that save water, but not in terms of the usage of water. But for example, a material supplier we work with, they actually use plastic waste from the oceans or fishing nets and waste that is created within the oceans and within the waters, and that's then used as a material that we print with. Or another company we work with who are based in France and Dubai, They do 3D printed concrete from different waste materials, and they create artificial coral reefs because you can print any shape really. And those coral reefs, oh my God, I should have practiced that.
It's fine.
Are then put into the sea where actual coral reefs are extinct, and it really, really generates biodiversity, and it actually works. So it's populated by algae and little fish, etc. It's kind of sad we have to do this, but you know, it's getting there. And we also recently got in touch with the founder of Ocean Impact, venture capitalists who support companies like that. So we're kind of on a mission in terms of saving water from a slightly different angle, but still.
Fantastic. Let's move on. Let's talk about architecture in general. Big question, okay? Paul or Michael, first of all, is good architecture, not just any old architecture, good architecture about quality or quantity? What do you think? So should,
I think I know what Paul's answer would be based on our previous discussion.
We tend to go for quality, obviously.
Of course, I knew you were going to say that.
Obviously, but it's simply because that we need to be very careful on quantity, as in how much do we need of that quantity. Are we going to build a certain amount of development and have it being left vacant, for example? So, and at what detriment? So, unfortunately, we've been, or fortunately rather, we're working on a project, and we've seen photographs of a number of towns in Malta back in the 60s and 30s, and it was beautiful. Nowadays, we've went for quantity, but we've compromised the quality. So I do strongly believe that quality, regardless whether it's new or old, I think we should focus that first. The quantity will come, because if there's really good quality, they will want more of that. So
I feel that tide is turning generally, don't you? That people are valuing historical things more, they're valuing heritage more, valuing quality over the quantitative architecture of, as you say, of the 60s and 70s, 40, 50 years ago.
Because I strongly believe that we should design for longevity, and that means quality. Because if you're not designing for longevity and you're going for quantity with the serious compromise of quality, because I do believe that you need to create a balance, obviously. But if you don't go for a certain level of quality, then you're going to be pulling down your investment within a couple of years. That might not be even worth doing it in the first place.
Michael?
I think it depends. I agree with Paul, but I think it depends on the project. Because in residential projects, usually it's really for long years, like 20 years. But in commercial design, the lifespan is shorter. So if you're designing an office, it's tops 10 years, and then the design grows old, and then you renovate. So I think quality is important, and mainly the use of heavy-duty materials, the materials that don't wear out, but it has to be in balance with quantity, because at the end we want to have a project that stands in budget, that stands in time. So we have to balance that, I believe.
Okay, I'm going to throw the questions open to you, so be thinking about what questions you want to ask in just a moment. I just want to talk about the next big thing now with all of you. So on the design front, first of all, Sophia and Marco, what's exciting you about the future? Are you going to be turned into an AI one day, Marco?
Oh, I hope not.
Well, I hope not as well.
No, I think AI is definitely is very important. It's a very exciting thing about the future.
Is it exciting, or is it slightly worrying that we could get AI designers coming into the market soon?
I doubt AI will. Well, who knows? But I doubt it will ever reach a proper, well, first of all, the personal and relationship you have with the client. You know, you're talking to a robot. It's not going to be like talking to someone who deals with you every day, every hour of the day with some clients and so on. In terms of taking a brief, yeah, of course, AI is soon going to be able to do that and design, if not already, and design something based on a brief. But at the same time, sometimes you have to show the client something and try and understand what they like, the style they like, what they their specific requirements are. And in order to be able to get information from the client, really important information on which you base your designs, you need that personal relationship. So I'm not worried about, at least in my lifetime, being replaced by AI, but it might be wrong.
All right, so what's
But,
exciting you? What are you looking forward to?
I think 3D printing, what Sophia is doing, it's very, very interesting. I mean, we haven't got there yet. I know that the machinery is very expensive as well, and it's getting there. And I think it's, as for everything new and modern, is going to be more widely available in the future. But at the same time, I think we would like, if we did want to go for 3D printing, we would still want to keep our craftsmanship and that element as well, which is what our company's ethos is. Really.
Keeping that heritage that we've
So maybe a combination of the two. So I do, I do follow and I'm so keen on new technologies, but at the same time I like the heritage side of things, and even in buildings, when we were talking about it earlier, I'd rather always work on, let's say, a period property rather than a new build, but obviously you do get both of them, yeah, no, I'd say.
All right, Marco, thank you. Sophia, you're already 3D printing, we know that. So what's exciting you about the future?
I'll just jump in quickly. We actually do combine the 3D printing with craftsmanship. So we have certain elements, all our elements are hand finished. Like anything that's made of stone, wood, or concrete is hand finished afterwards in traditional ways. And also there's the digital craftsmanship, like you can't see the pieces, but we can show them to you another time. We have a lot of, you know, the mythology, the patterns that are created are actually created by the robot. Like when there's pigments that distributes in colors, the robot has his own creative freedom, and just, we never know what the outcome will be really. The shape is set, but the patterns and colors are...
It's when the robot starts writing words in the product,
yeah,
then
yeah,
you
yeah.
need to worry.
Secret
Yeah?
messaging. we haven't gotten so far yet. And also AI for us is a tool because it's part of the software that actually makes the process more efficient for us, but it hasn't replaced us yet, and I don't think it will. And yeah, excitement, I think, well, we want to apply it, you know, the material research, like working more with food waste or new materials, like using fiber optics, etc. We're very excited about trying the latest in terms of materials and also going bigger with it, because we do come from architecture, so it's nice to do necklaces or benches, but also it's good to do like public realm, bigger impact projects with the same technology.
Sophia, thank you so much. Michal and Paul as well. You know, we've seen great strides within architecture from technology. I'm thinking of things like analysis of buildings, creation of 3D models of buildings, that sort of thing. What's exciting you for the future?
Well, you spoke earlier about AI. I think for now it's just the beginning. We're just learning it, and I think it could be an amazing tool for designers and architects. And I think the next step would be that AI would generate not only an image but really a 3D model, because I was in a Tim Fu's lecture not long ago. He works in Zaha Hadid, and he has an Zaha Hadid code, it's called. He generates Zaha Hadid-like buildings with Midjourney. and then he tries to
Deconstruct?
deconstruct them and make 3D models of this generated image. So I think this would be really the next step, and it's really exciting to create 3D elements that are generated by AI.
It does that actually. Like one of our fabricators, sorry, very geeky now. they never do their own. They use our models, but when they do their own thing, they never actually model it. It's all pre-scripted, or it's the AI generating the model for them. But it's always a bit hit and miss because you don't know what ideas it will have.
Paul, what about you? What are you looking
Yes,
forward
I
to?
agree with Sophia and Mikhail that AI will be a tool rather. It will crunch numbers. It will help us get to a solution perhaps earlier. I do believe that what is exciting in the near future is also the psychological effect of our buildings and our interiors. We're much more conscious now, especially post-COVID, that where we live, where we work, it does make a big impact on the way on our health. And I do believe that eventually this kind of science, psychological science, will be transmitted into our education as well, into the science of interior design and architecture. And I do believe that within the next years, we're already seeing this actually, that we will be seeing a more shift towards the psychological needs, the human needs, besides obviously the appreciation to historical value and so on. But I think that is where we're going. We're going with regards to psychological, making sure that we're also mentally healthy, and it's also a thing nowadays. It's picking up momentum, and I also look forward to see actually technology being integrated within the design itself. So buildings will now become more interactive as well. That would be really fun. So looking forward to that.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have any questions for our panelists at all? Anyone got any questions? Don't be shy. Sir, yes, your question.
You hear me? Okay. I have a question about concrete and monolith design. You know, most of the countries use monolith structure with heavy concrete. Is there any development in this field so that we can replace concrete, for example?
So about the issue of concrete and its longevity, you mean?
Yeah. Is there any other technology or material that can replace concrete?
Great question. Thank you. Sophia, I mean, we'll hand this over to you because you're making furniture out of concrete 3D printed. So coffee grounds, or do we see buildings made of other things?
The concrete, actually, if you print it, so our partner who does the concrete furniture with us, they actually do architecture. So they do large-scale partitions, staircases, like whole floor slabs, etc. And you save 50% of material if you print it. You can use much less cement, and the mix is very different. They're also working at the moment at a carbon offsetting, carbon neutral concrete mix using minerals, and there's no mold or formwork needed. So if you think about that in a large-scale building, 50% less material and no waste, that's one way. If you go down the concrete route, and otherwise, I think it's just been there for so long that it's hard to replace concrete completely. But clay is a big one. I think a lot of it is going back to earth and clay-based materials.
Any thoughts on this issue, the concrete issue? Is there something that you are thinking of that is a good replacement, or is there anything happening where you are in those respects?
Well, I think that concrete, as Sophia said, would be difficult to replace, but we're pushing the boundaries of concrete. So especially universities, they're finding ways of making slabs more slender, or giving a structure within the concrete to actually make it hollow, so you're losing less concrete, but at the same time it's working in itself.
I mean, I suppose that's the joy of having had it around for several decades now, is we know the good points, and also we know some of its potential failings as well, some of its issues.
Well, it's been there since the Roman Empire, so it's been lost and refound. So I think that concrete is there to stay. I think it's up to us to be more inventive with it and try to push its boundaries.
Concrete kitchens for Linley, that's not a thing yet, is it?
No, I mean concrete countertops, maybe, or concrete floors, but I have to say it's not something we would recommend or we would like to specialise in.
Just thought
it's
I'd
just
ask,
to,
just
yeah,
in
yeah,
case.
of course,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just to, I'd say.
It has come into kitchen design.
Yeah,
hasn't it?
absolutely.
I mean,
yeah,
who would have thought that people would have, as you say, concrete countertops?
concrete floors.
Yeah, exactly, within their house.
But I would say it's a bit too. I wouldn't say people come to Linley to get any super industrial concrete kitchen, which wouldn't be particularly practical.
Yeah, not in your style book at the moment,
yes.
Shall we say? Michal, quick word on concrete.
Well, more in the design aspect. In Israel, we love concrete. We love the industrial look, and we have a lot of designs with exposed concrete. We love to leave the columns exposed, the floors, the beams, everything. I think concrete kitchen could be quite nice. There are all kinds of techniques like micro topping, that is like a 2-3 millimeter thick concrete finish that you can amplify to casework or woodwork or anything.
All right, thank you so much. Great question. Thank you very much. Questioner at the back. Okay, briefly then, who are the main clients? Where are they located?
I'd say mainly residential. We do residential properties, so private clients. But a lot of the times, private clients have an interior designer in between them and us, particularly if they want a kitchen. Obviously, if we're doing their house and we are providing our interior design services, they'll have, we'll deal directly with them. Most of the time, actually, we deal directly with the clients, and part of what I do is building a relationship with them. And make sure that you're happy, delivering what we talked about, what we discussed, and all of their requirements. I mean, our kitchens are complete kitchens, cabinetry, and accessories, and all the bespoke pieces are completely bespoke. And so the personal relationship is very important, either with the client or with their interior designer. That's what one of the main parts of what I do. In terms of where they're based, lately we also do work with hotels. We work for Claridge's. We work for the Four Seasons at 10 Trinity Square. There are possibilities of working with places in the Middle East, new development in the Middle East, and obviously new developers as well. But mainly, I'd say it's private clients. But we do like doing working with both.
Marco, thank you. Briefly, if you will, Paul.
Thank you for the question. We work with private clients mostly from all over the world. We're lucky that we managed to get to see different cultures and obviously study different styles. Residential mostly. We do get a couple of offices and the occasional large project, but we like to get close in person with the client himself or herself and the family perhaps, and we make sure that we're delivering their story in our projects. So yeah.
Okay, Sophia?
So in the UK, mainly actually property developers like Night Dragon, Grosvenor, Argent, etc. We do bespoke ranges for them, both interiors but also placemaking and public realm. So they often come with an idea of, we want an organic material of some sort, and then we do the whole research and think for them. And then in Austria, I'm Austrian, it's cities who commission us for public realm projects, but then also there's high net clients, like private clients who just want a lamp.
So, okay, all right, thank you very much. And Michal?
Well, our clients are mostly global companies based in US and Europe, and they seek to have their offices in Israel, mostly R&D. All the communication is done by video conference. We have some developer clients for office buildings, and then we do the interiors of the public areas.
Okay, we'll be very brief with the answers, but we've got time for one more question. Gentleman at the back, yes, thank you.
My concern about the water is, would it be seen as a sign of starvation, possibly in the UK or Europe or the world over?
How concerned are you, very briefly, if you will, about water? Is it high up your list of worries, do you think? I know, as we've talked with climate challenges, let's say, climate emergency, I think it's the official term now.
No, I'm very concerned about water. I mean, when I was studying, we had a super inspiring lecture by Anna Whitehead, the late Anna Whitehead, and it was probably the most inspiring talk of my studies. And she, before that, I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're going to talk about sustainability and so on. Obviously, I didn't know much back then, but then her talk was so inspiring, but at the same time worrying. She told us how much water it takes to make a cotton T-shirt, for example, and I was shocked. So it's very, very concerning.
Okay, Paul.
Yes, I think, well, obviously this will all boil down to policy level then and governments. I think that we need to start from there. There will be a cultural shift to actually get enough awareness to save on water. But I think we need to start from there, from education and governments, to actually start imposing certain legislation on a certain level of quality in the design itself, or use, or how to cap certain usage. I think we should start from there, because it is evident that water is the next thing that we should be focusing on.
Okay, Sophia?
Yeah, I agree actually with the legislation, but also maybe it should be tracked. You know how we track calories and everyone's very aware of this is how much I can eat, this is how much use. This should be applied to actual consumption of energy, water, etc. That could be a way forward.
Okay, and finally, Micha.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything that is said here. Water saving is a very important issue, but I think it comes together with the entire energy saving and all the environmentally conscious issues that we talked about. It's really important.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. That we have to leave it there because we must move on to the awards and we've got much more to come. But thank you so much for your contributions. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our panelists, Michael Leitner, Marco Arber, Sophia Hagen, and Paul Cuscieri. Give them a huge round of applause. Thank you so much.